Welcome to the New York Now podcast, a modern wholesale market for retailers and specialty buyers seeking diversity and discovery. Gathering twice a year in America's design capital, New York City, it's where buyers and designers unearth a refreshed and dedicated collection of eclectic lifestyle products. Deb Lilligren, founder and creative director of Viroqua Wicked Smart. Deb is an award-winning creative professional with right brain ingenuity and left brain sensibility. In 2013, she opened her own creative studio, where she's been developing successful multi-channel projects by integrating branding, design, and marketing strategies. Mark and Katrina Paris have lived and worked in Harlem for the past 20 years. After running their successful designer flower shop in Harlem for years, they recognized the need for a retail store above 96th Street, where people could shop for elegant, eclectic gifts that reflect the people and the culture of the Harlem community. They sold their flower business but kept their retail store, opening NiLu in 2015. Named after their two sons, Nigel and Luke, NiLu features a personally curated array of home decor, art, jewelry, and gifts. The store functions not only as a retail store, but as a showcase and community center for local Black and multicultural makers and creators. Over the last year, Mark and Katrina, seeing the need for more visibility for multicultural creators, have expanded their brand and their website to support makers beyond the Harlem community. We are delighted to have you joining us today.
First, I want to say thank you so much to Don Drill for such a nice introduction. I'm thrilled to be here today with New York Now, but I'm even probably more excited to have a chance to talk to Mark Penn and Katrina Paris, who are the owners of my favorite shop in all of Harlem, NiLu. This shop is so much more than a shop. It's a little bit of a jewel. And as a proud Harlem resident, I can speak from personal experience that NiLu is just so much more than a gift shop. And I want to welcome you both today and thank you for taking time.
Hey, Deb. Thank you. Thank you for having us. We appreciate the time.
Oh, thanks. So I remember when I first moved to Harlem about 9 years ago, NiLu was your namesake flower shop.
Well, it was Katrina Paris Flowers was the namesake, but yeah. The location.
So what inspired you to switch and go into what I like to call a lifestyle gift / home shop? What changed the direction? What made you want to do this?
Well, we had been in the floral business for 15 years. And if anybody knows anything about the floral business, it's like a restaurant. It's a very demanding industry to be in. And after, 15 years and we had 2 children, it was just burnt out. It was time for something different. It really took a toll on me personally. So wanting to end that chapter and begin another one was time. So, having we live in the community, and so you walk around and you're always thinking about once you're an entrepreneur, you're always an entrepreneur and you see things. One of the things that we had, discussed, well, what was life going to be after the flower shop? And, the store is right around the corner from our house. So I'll be honest, the idea of walking every day past, what was once a store that we owned and have somebody else there was not a good look or a good feeling. I'd say 3 years prior, before closing or selling the flower shop, started to notice a trend. And the trend was that there were more and more people moving into the community, and people were coming into the flower shop, but not necessarily wanting to buy flowers, but needed to have a hostess gift, looking for something for the house. And there really weren't too many options around, So I think the seed for NiLu started to be planted at that time.
That makes a lot of sense. And actually, as someone who was a florist for 4 years, I give you so much credit for sticking it out for 15. That's impressive. And I remember when NiLu opened, and you named it after your boys. Is that correct?
Yes.
Do they have a huge point of pride when they walk into the store and they're like, this is ours?
Well, hopefully one day they will. They're what? Secretly they did. Come to find out among their friend group, they were proud, but they would never let us know. They're teenagers now, 13 and 15. So, I think a little bit they stick out their chest when their friends say, your mom and dad's business is so cool.
Well, I like hearing that. So Harlem is a very interconnected community, and as residents here and the businesses who serve it, we really work together. Tell us why you felt Harlem was the right place for you to establish the business. I know you already touched on that this is where you live, this is your home, you live just around the corner. But is there something about the community here as a consumer community, but also as fellow neighbors and residents that made you think this is really where this has to be? This is where NiLu has to exist?
Yeah, not a big part of our story is Harlem, and Harlem has such a rich history and background. And Katrina's been in Harlem since 93,
91.
91. I've been in here since 99. And Harlem had multiple Renaissance periods, right? It had a big one many years ago, and then it had a couple of short ones, in the 90s. And then we saw that this renaissance that we're going through now was here to stay. But what also came with that was gentrification. So we felt like we wanted to help preserve our culture through
Okay.
shop, because a lot of the products in here have a lot of Black culture stories behind it. And then we also wanted to make sure that we're offering something that was for everyone, not just for people just moving into the neighborhood, or just for people who've been in the community since they were born. So we wanted to kind of bring people together, but let's preserve our Black culture through our selection of products.
Okay, great. Now, this actually is very a very interesting segue, because what we're seeing now is an increased awareness and support for Black-owned businesses. How has this increased outpouring of open conversations and the national action initiatives, how have they, within the retail environment, how has it encouraged you as both creatives and as business owners?
It made us realize that we needed to double down on what we believed was the right thing. Was making sure that we were catering our business to people of color. I guess for people of color, by people of color, in a sense that we also wanted products in here. We also wanted the customers to be connected with the products. And so with the whole movement, it just said, hey, we need to really double down and move in this direction. Frankly, not just in a Harlem perspective, but we actually started reaching out even beyond Harlem to other makers outside of our community. And then the second part is the economic of it all, the economics of it all, in a sense that this money that's coming into Black businesses, frankly, stay within the Black community. And so we wanted to really fuel that, because again, when somebody buys, a candle or soap from us, it's going back to a Black maker. So I think you get, double the value, when it comes to supporting a Black business. So we really felt we were on the right track. And just now it's a matter of, stepping up and meeting the demand. But it's more than just this flash in the pan kind of thing, right? We think this is
Right.
long-term view of how people want to shop. So a lot of customers will come in and say, yeah, this time I'm not going to just dump all my money in Amazon for the holidays. I want to, balance that out with shopping local with, a brand that has a story such as our story, because we are contending at a local level. We are contending with national brands. National brand retailers are taking over a lot of our commercial space that's very expensive. So people really want that support to happen. They want to really support our business.
That's very true. And I mean, I know, speaking from my own personal experience, if I can shop local, I will. And I think your store is really something special, because when you go into your shop, it's not just a shopping excursion, it's an actual experience. From the moment I walk up to the front window and I walk in through the front door, I feel like every single sense is engaged, and it's done in a really subtle yet embracing manner there's music, these wonderful scents coming from those candles that you have and your visuals. What's the process that you go through to create this 360-degree branding environment and your elevated merchandising?
It's, to be honest with you, it's a lot of it is just, Mark used to laugh, but it's just all of the things that I want to experience when I go shopping. I want to be, we live in New York City. We live in a city that you can find anything that you want, I mean, I find that when I travel, I don't buy a whole lot of things because it's like, oh, I could get that back home. I can get that back home. It's those it's those makers, those small maker local things that make it special. And I realized that a long time ago. And that was part of why, providing a platform for local makers was so important, because I knew that was going to be the thing that nobody could get anywhere else. That was what was going to make it special. And so for me, I'm a very visual person, and I didn't really realize that until, I mean, this is going to sound weird, but I mean, having the floral business for 15 years, it's a visual, it's a creative, but having NiLu has been, I think, this is going to sound strange, I felt more creative than I did in the floral business, because they were, I wasn't creating the arrangement. I was creating the arrangement, so it was a different creativity. It was something that was probably more raw. With
Mhm.
NiLu, with the merchandising, it's a visual, it's art in that, how do you present something in a way that is appealing to somebody who might not necessarily even know what they're looking for. And so, one of the things that I'm a stickler about is that every product should have its moment. You should have time to digest it, and appreciate it. I'm not one who ever liked going into major big department stores. I never liked, the just vastness of them, and that there was just too much to see, and I just want like one particular thing, and I got to go to three different floors to get it. And like, I just never liked that. I just liked being able to kind of have a moment and kind of look and give it thought and move on to the next. And NiLu was a big part of that, of I feel like the shopping experience, first of all, we know it's changed from what it used to be, from just, you go into the store, and I feel like it was just mass quantities of things, and you just kind of, there wasn't any thought put into it. So NiLu, we wanted it to be very an experience, like you said, that everything is engaged, your visual, you can touch and feel, you can try the chocolate, that it was an experience that you had time to kind of just take time and think about, if you're going to spend your hard earned money, whether it's a gift for yourself or for somebody else, you have to be in the mindset of being open to kind of really think about, okay, I'm going to get this gift for Joe. What does Joe like to do? What, you got to be in your mindset of being, calm enough to think about and to give consideration to. So that was, that was part of the master scheme. And then, because I am so visual, just wanting it to be very, visual pleasing, not overwhelming. I give everything the analogy of a food court. You're not going to go and, get anything at the salad bar if it looks nasty. You're just gonna go out and be like, no, I'm okay, thanks. And I always give an analogy that, it's a food court. You got to make it look attractive and appealing and give everything its moment.
Well, I mean, that explains so much about your website too, because a lot of times people who have brick and mortar shops, you go to their website and it feels a little bit cluttered, or it can also feel maybe a little bit too sterile. And I feel like you have done an amazing job, because I go onto shopnilu.com and I feel like you've done an amazing job translating what it's like to go into your shop and put it onto a website, which I think is really hard to do. And I do think certain things, just the way you're presenting the products, but also how you're taking the time to do the maker videos, really lets people get a sense of what you're about. And like what Mark was saying earlier, this isn't a flash in the pan type of thing. This is a commitment to what you're offering and with whom you're working.
And I think that's probably the biggest challenge, that in doing the website, is trying to convey exactly that, what you experience in the store. How do you convey that in a website? And Mark has done an incredible job at doing that.
Oh, is this your baby, Mark?
Yeah, I guess. Yes.
Well, you've done an outstanding job, because I do feel like you go into it and you know what's going on. You understand it. And I feel like it does engage shoppers. And I realize I might have a bit more knowledge than most people as far as having been in your shop. But I think if you sent this along to anybody, they would be thrilled and really engaged with what's happening and what you're doing, as well as the products themselves.
Well, we haven't figured out how to smell candles through the website.
There
Yeah.
will be a way. We
Um,
need smell-o-vision.
yeah. Well, that's one of the challenges that we've experienced once we open the doors. People start coming back into the store. People are like, "Oh, couldn't wait for you to open so I could, get this experience." And they wanted our particular experience as opposed to going to no disrespect, but like going to a TJ Maxx experience, right?
Mhm.
And then the second thing they'll say is, yeah, well, I'm just going to keep coming back. And I said, well, we got to let everyone know that we got to be online, because if COVID wave 2 comes back, start thinking about us online. And if you have customer base that's so attached to the store, the physical part, they're not thinking to go online. They're going to think, the simple stuff, the Amazons. And so we've been equally spending a lot of time, just lack of a better word, educating our customers to say, hey, we're online now, and we knew that we had to do something special online, because if they did go online and it was underwhelming, then we lost them. So that was an important thing for us to try to figure that out.
Are you finding that even some of your local customers are opting to shop online as opposed to come in the store? Or once things were opened up again, they were just so thrilled to be able to see you again
Yeah, the
that they came
majority of
in?
them just were thrilled to come into the store again. They were just like, look, I've been locked up for months, and you were the one of the first places we wanted to check out, because they just wanted to buy something.
Yeah.
It's very interesting, how you get all that pent up demand and just people throw money at you. But yeah, that's been our challenge, is getting people to think about us from online.
All right. So you have, I would like to say that it's a vast product offering. You have a lot in the shop, but it's still very curated. Can you talk a little bit about what you look for and why when you're sourcing new products?
It's we feel like we're in a gift desert. So, that's part of the thing, is that I always feel like you don't have to have everything, just the right things. And so having a selection that's available for, a man, woman, child. We used to offer pet products. They didn't do so good. But, a go-to place that you could get, a gift for a birthday, for a housewarming, for whatever occasion, even just for yourself. um, Wanted to uh, first identify who the gifts were going to be for, who our purchases were going to be. And then with that, making the point that Mark said earlier, really wanting to touch on Black culture, because there are a lot of places where you can get the same stuff, but there are very few places where you can get, very specific stuff. And I find that, raising two children, that it had made me sensitive to some of the things that we were privy to and not privy to. And so, for example, for children in the children's section, it's not a vast department, but it's a very mindful department. Having children, I knew that we wanted to have we wanted to have items or product that encouraged imagination, that required there to be some level of engagement, as opposed to something that was just a passive, kind of object
Mhm.
toy. So there was a line that I discovered early on, called Compendium, out of the West Coast. It's a smaller company, smaller by comparison in terms of it's not like a Hachette or Abrams, book publisher, but they do their children's line. They do very well, and it started off with a book called What You Do with an Idea, and that was the first thing that grabbed me. And from there, just really wanting to have things that are engaging and really lent to a child's imagination. That has always been a criteria in our children's section. For home, just those little decor items or little essentials that you don't really think about that you need or you want or that you gift until you get it. One of those things that you don't buy wine stoppers for yourself typically, unless you're a big wine aficionado. But, they were things that the criteria had to be that that they were makers from Harlem and beyond, that there was something redemptive about the object, whether it was used, from recycled goods, whether it gave back to the environment. Our global products are geared towards supporting specifically women, because there's a lot of women artisans globally that there are these, organizations that work with them. And so when I do find, when I go to the New York Now show, those are the areas that I really scrub: the made in America, the global, and the handmade, because those are the things that are not, you're going to find everywhere. And those are the ones that are makers on a bigger scale. And those were the products that I knew that if I really looked and took the time to, go through, I would find some gems. And, it never disappoints. When I go to the New York show, if I walk away with 3 new vendors, I feel like it's been a great success.
Did you miss going to the show this year?
I did. I went to the show in February, not knowing obviously, what was going to happen just a short month after. And it was funny because some of the purchases that I made, I didn't do it in the numbers in which, like I bought puzzles in February because there were some great African American puzzles that I had never seen before. Had I known COVID was going to happen, I would have ordered 4 times more than what I had ordered. But, but that's the thing, just, mindful things. A quick story. I'm the youngest of 9 children. And so, Christmas time and gift giving was something that was very, first of all, we didn't have a whole lot of money. I took gift giving at a young age very serious because, I didn't have a whole lot of money. And so among our siblings, I remember my sister regifting me one of her shirts that I used to love. And so I really feel that, gift giving to me is very personal, that you should take the time, if you're going to take the time, then to really, learn about the person that you're going to give the gift to, but also just be mindful about it. I mean, you work hard for your money.
Yeah, it's true. And I think it's really something. I know that very similar situation. We didn't have a lot of money growing up, but it was when you really thought about what you were going to give someone was almost as enjoyable, sometimes more so than what you were going to get back.
Exactly.
And even to this day, when I'm giving a gift, I put a lot of thought into it. And when I go into your shop, and this year has been really difficult because you are my go-to for gifts. So when you were closed, I felt for you, but I also selfishly felt for myself. It was difficult. And I felt like anytime I would go into your shop, and believe me, expect to see me in there at least twice this week because, the holiday shopping has started. I feel like every time I go in there, I find something new, even though it was probably in there, I probably just missed it. And I know a lot of it has to do with the way you merchandise, and you do change the layout of the shop fairly often. So I think it feels fresh. But one of the things I'm really impressed by is that every section of the store has a unique story. And then when you turn and look at another section, even though it has as well its own unique story, there is this cohesiveness. Is this inspired by the products that you're having or the customer? Is it because your customer is really, you've really identified it? Or is it because that your products all have some sort of common thread?
Well, it's funny. I'll be quite honest with you. It's sometimes it's a variety of just how much inventory you have, and you have to make it look different. I mean, you don't always have the benefit of having a plethora of inventory that you can just kind of pull out there, and it does what it does. I think that's where I get the whole visual thing from. It's storytelling. It's vignettes. I really believe in, giving everything a moment. It's vignette. Sometimes shoppers don't always make the connection, so you have to make it for them. You have to tell the story because people don't always see the things that you see. So creating that vignette, that storytelling is important. I mean, with makers, that's that's part of, I think, the whole experience of working and having product lines that are by smaller makers. You need to give them that breadth, that storytelling, opportunity, and you have to present their goods in a way that's going to do it justice. So you have to present it in a very, purposeful and meaning way.
Okay. Oh, that makes sense. I will say though, You go into your shop, and even if you have a lot of inventory, it doesn't look like it. It always just feels very harmonious. So,
Want people to feel overwhelmed. That having a moment and everything has its little vignette is key to that. That you don't feel overwhelmed, because to me that is that Macy's experience, that Bloomingdale.
yes.
I do not want anybody to have that.
I think the only way I've ever felt overwhelmed in your store is knowing that I wanted to buy more, but I don't have enough space in my home. So that's the only way. Um, so this is actually kind of, you've touched on this. You went to New York now, you found these fantastic puzzles. We're in a situation now where we have this ongoing unpredictability, and there's this strong social consciousness as well. Have you adjusted that product assortment to sort of deal with the fact that we just don't know what's going to happen from one day to the next?
Changed it only in a way in which we've doubled down to what Mark said earlier. We've doubled down with makers of color. We've always been about makers, and we've always been about makers of color, but even more so than ever. There have been a couple of brands that we've decided not to carry anymore, because we actively are looking for makers of color to fill that niche. I feel like, we live in living in Harlem in the early 2000s. There were a lot of amenities that didn't exist uh, now then that exist now. And that's not because people didn't want it. It was just because they just didn't exist. And I take that same philosophy of I always feel like, there are things that makers make. You just have to go out and find them, in terms of comparison to larger manufacturers. So doubling down on makers of color has been a very purposeful and a very intended way that we have changed how we've bought. In just the last couple of months since we've reopened in October, we've added on 6 to 8 new makers of color, and we want that list to continue to grow long after COVID is gone.
So great. Now, given with all of that, are there any buying trends that you're seeing that you've embraced
Yeah.
relative to things that customers were, much to your point, they wanted and needed, but it wasn't something that was presented? Now you have?
Right. Candles have by far probably been the most popular in the last couple of months with COVID. I think with people spending more time at home, there is, an aesthetic and just a nesting feeling that I think people get from candles. And so wanting their homes to be more, comfortable, to feel more homey, and it's got a calming effect as well,
Yeah.
I mean, people use candles in a myriad of different ways, meditation, um, just to make their home smell good. That's definitely been a big item, as well as paper products, stationery, whether it's journals, whether it's cards. People are corresponding and sending, in lieu of being able to visit or whatever, they're sending more cards. They're writing in their journals. They're sending more notes to check on people. That's definitely made a difference.
Would you say that? Oh, sorry, Mark.
No, I was just saying that I don't think there's any I mean, not taking anything away from what Katrina shared. I don't think there's anything special that's evolving from a product mix. I think it comes down to how people acquire it.
Okay.
Well, people have different levels of sensitivity to this COVID, in a sense that there are people who are ready to, run down the street, half naked, just to express themselves because they've been locked up for a while. And there are other people who are still not ready to come outside,
Mhm.
double up on their rubber gloves and their masks if they have to come out. And so for us, I think it was a matter of how we have to shop where they are. I guess that's the point.
Yeah.
May shop online, may they make a phone call, may it be a curbside. We've actually looked a lot into Instagram shopping and Facebook shopping, just to kind of just make it available based on people's level of comfort.
That's great. Have you seen an uptick in curbside pickup and Instagram shopping?
Well, for us, no, because when we opened up, New York City had opened up, and people wanted to come in.
Okay.
Now that we are, obviously the writing is on the wall, we're expecting, curbside pickup to be a big part of our business going forward.
Okay. Now, going kind of back to what Katrina said, you said that you saw a lot of uptick in candle sales and stationery sales. Would you say that those are your top selling categories right now?
Yeah, and books as
Yeah.
well. Yeah, I'd say so.
When you say books, because you have that wonderful coffee table book section, are you seeing really every book across, nonfiction, fiction? What are you seeing most of the buying happen?
We primarily it's the coffee table book section across the board, whether it's, for the sneaker aficionado or for those who like photography. They're buying a Dapper Dan's book. That's probably one of the books that we have that is actually a non-coffee table book. It's going out. Calendars are big. They're going out as well.
Okay.
Yeah, I would say calendars and puzzles are
That's
big.
true. Puzzles too.
And maybe this may be a little out of turn on this point, but we like the phrase beauty makes customers shop, but stories make customers buy. And so it's not just here's a candle and here's a puzzle, but here's why Katrina felt it was a thoughtful, purposeful, mindful gift. And you could tell the story about the maker. Or, for example, I'm looking at a calendar now. It says African American Art, Detroit Institute, and it has a variety. People get tickled, black and white, when they just see this kind of stuff. They see variety, and we can explain why we picked out, Archibald Motley and Charles White and Romare Bearden. We can explain that as opposed to just a generic, a nice looking calendar, but if it doesn't have, then it doesn't really move.
Exactly. All right. Well, you guys have been fantastic today, and we're going to be wrapping this up. But is there anything that we can expect to see in shop and online for the holiday season and going into 2021?
That's a hard one for us, but I would say one is more collaboration with artists. Okay. Where we will work with artists to figure out the right way to make their art accessible through merchandising. One way we kind of look at NiLu is it's kind of like it's somewhat of a museum gift shop of Harlem. Okay. So we may feature a lot of artist work on note cards or prints, as a segue to people moving into the higher, pricing items. I would say that's one. And then I think the other is more partnerships with makers and designers, outside of Harlem, looking at other Black communities that have a similar mindset as Harlem, and see if we can work with makers just as we are doing it here in Harlem.
Oh, that's great. Well, I want to thank you guys so much. Thank you for taking time. I want to thank New York Now for bringing us together, and really so much for taking time to talk about NiLu. I will be in there on Wednesday. I'm not joking either. I'll be over by the candles and by the teacups. So just control me if there's too many. And I just want to thank you both. Have the best holiday season. And just a reminder that the New York Now digital market is open for business. We hope to see you there, and stay safe.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
To learn more and to shop with NiLu, Harlem's gift shop, please visit shopnilu.com and follow on Instagram at shopnilu. To connect with Deb and learn more about her services, please visit wickedsmartcreative.com. Thank you for listening to the New York Now podcast. Make sure to tune in weekly for engaging and insightful conversations touching on the most relevant topics facing our community today. Visit NewYorkNow.com to learn more about our market and how you can join in on the conversation.